Welcome to episode 100 of the Worship Leader Toolbox. So glad you're listening today as we celebrate this milestone.
Yeah, we've had fun over the last few years sharing info and encouragement to worship leaders and worship teams in local churches. And so Dave and I thought we would do the special 100th episode, a little bit different format than usual. And we hope that this works. We're going to just ask a few questions so that you can kind of get to know us a little bit. I know we've talked over the years and over the episodes, but I've got a few questions here, Dave, I thought we could answer. And then I thought we would try to get some people on the phone and just have them be a part of this in some kind of way. So to start with, these are the questions that we have. And Dave, you can be thinking of an answer here, and I will too, and then we'll just answer those so that people can hear. Here's the questions. 1, how did you get involved in music? 2, how did you get involved in worship leadership? 3, what is your typical rhythm for your worship role? Doesn't have to be totally detailed, but just kind of what's your typical flow for the week in terms of how you prepare for the role you have? And then the last question is, have you written any songs? And so let's jump in. And Dave, you can answer first.
Okay. I got involved with music by crawling up to the piano when I was 4 or 5 years old and hammering out Old MacDonald Had a Farm. So they started me off on piano. I didn't like all the books and charts and different things like that, and so I didn't really go too far with piano. But since then, I've been doing everything by ear, and recently been having to do a lot more stuff on music theory and paper and all that kind of stuff because I teach. But
in the paper.
Yeah, the paper stuff.
The notes.
But a family friend gave us a bass guitar when I was in junior high, and I really enjoyed doing that. The very first song I tried to learn was When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Gets Going from the Jewel and the Nile album. And I just put that on a cassette tape, rewound that thing so many times to be able to play that. And then I got into guitar, and I did some worship leading in high school, and I was involved a little bit in Harvest here and there. But the main bulk of worship that I've been doing has been over the last 6 years when I met Leanne and been doing music with her. But when I was 16 years old, my sister Sarah took the one guitar in the house that was Dad's guitar to college because she needed to because she was majoring in music. And I didn't have anything to play. And so I prayed one day. I said, Lord, I would really love my own guitar. And down at the Alton Pawn Shop, there was a classical guitar, which was new to me, with the whole nylon string thing, and $25, I think. And I have it to this day. I've kept it all these years. Huh. Still plays pretty well. And that actually took me in a different direction than just standard campfire song things, because now I could do, flamenco things and some Spanish things. And one of the first songs I did was Sandy Patty's Via del Rosa. I made an instrumental version of that and did some jazz things with that. And so that kind of shaped my view on music and everything is probably that one experience of having a different kind of guitar than, you kind of grow up with. And then in college, over there at Greenville, I was in several bands and played some different kinds of music than I was used to before, a little bit more heavy rock and different things, and had an experience that kind of shaped my view on what is actually ministry. There was I was in the Cornerstone Choir in a couple of different things that were school choirs, but then we had our individual band things. Band called Mustard Seed. Joel Pierce was a lot more concerned about reaching lost people than some of the other bands might have been, and so we had a gig scheduled in a bar. We were a Christian college, Christian band, had a gig scheduled in a bar, and I thought, what, this is crazy. We're a Christian band. We're not supposed to be in a bar. What are we doing here? But it happened to be Christian night in a bar, and it was a really eye-opening experience of, okay, we can do ministry in churches, we can do them in church camps, youth groups, all that kind of stuff. That's very well and good, but wow, you can actually do ministry in a place that you would not think that you could do ministry. Mm-hmm. When the setting's right, and whenever all that. So that kind of shaped my idea of what is ministry, also.
Yeah, that's really good. And these days, there's a lot of kind of it's kind of a fad to have bar churches. Like
bar churches?
You see them in various, some churches do that, like meet in those places so that they can like, for the very same reason, to like meet people where they're at.
Are they Baptist? Isn't there a song that your dad used to sing, the something Baptist Bar and Grill, First Baptist Bar and Grill?
I don't know. It sounds like a Ray Stevens song of some sort.
Ray Stevens, yeah.
I don't know what song
one of those
it is,
guys.
But
yeah.
Well, that's a really cool story, and it does shape you whenever you experience ministry. That happened to me once at a prison.
A prison?
Because we were leading worship there, and it was a song called "People Get Ready," which is an old sort of 70s type song, but it's such a repeater that it's easy. And the people latched onto it, and by the time we were all said and done, I think the song went like 20 minutes.
Oh,
and
wow.
every time we try to stop, I'd keep going. And by the time it was done, we had people walked up on that little chapel, tiny little stage there, and one guy was like playing the piano along with us, and one guy was playing these congas that were sitting there.
Wow.
And it like really went big, and it was just a memory. But that's always been burned in my mind too. So that answers the music and music leadership. What's your typical rhythm for ministry roles? Like, what's kind of your flow for the week? Do you rehearse, or do you just like get some songs together on Monday or a certain time, or is it kind of a rolling all the time thing, or do you have some segments that get you to Sunday morning?
Yeah. Leanne picks out the songs, and she'll bring them to me. If we haven't already done them before, we'll put them in the right key for her voice, and might even change some of the arrangements. Instead of having 3 tags at the end of the song or whatever, we don't do click tracks, obviously.
Yeah.
And so when we'll send them out on a Wednesday, and we don't have a practice. There's our church is pretty small, and the people involved just have the kind of jobs that it's really hard to get together for practice. So we practice on Sunday morning beforehand.
That works too.
As far as writing any songs, Leanne and I have written 18 songs together.
Oh, wow.
And we've copyrighted 10, and we published one on Spotify last year. And
that's cool.
Yeah. And that's a really enjoyable process because we get to break the mold, the worship mold. We have some songs that are specifically worship, and other ones that are just, about God or whatever. But I have always wanted to incorporate jazz into worship and other styles and stuff. We have this like flamenco, Spanish kind of style one, and some other things. And this is our effort to do that.
That's cool. Yeah. So how would people listen to any of those songs when you say on Spotify? Or do you have a Facebook page? Yeah, you do have a Facebook page.
We have a Facebook page. We changed the name. So it used to be On the Path. I think it might still be On the Path, but the YouTube channel is Dave and Leanne John. And so we've got the 10 that we copyrighted on there. Front Porch Sessions is what we called that, because we decided to just grab a camera and do that.
So if somebody wanted to look that up, if they spell John, it's Jahn.
Yes, it is.
It's not John.
Yep.
So,
and Dave has 2 umlauts over the V. No.
Hey, those are great answers. My answers are, how did I get involved in music? I think it was my family in general, since they all played music. And so it was kind of like, I think I've mentioned on the podcast, I'm sure I have, because it's been on my mind, you kind of inherit the opportunity to be a part of music. And not that you have to have a family music history to play music. It's just a better chance, probably, because there's a guitar sitting here and there in the living room, and a piano over there, and drum set over here. And so I really didn't have hardly a chance not to be involved in music. My mom and dad, along with actually your mom and dad, sang in a music group, and so called the King's Kids way back then. Yeah. And so that was basically kind of a...
We should interview them.
Yeah, we should.
Huh. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll put that in the little note so we don't forget.
Okay.
But they traveled all around the state doing music in college and beyond. And so I was kind of part of that because I was just a little baby. And so to answer the question, how did I actually get in music? It's almost too hard to say. But my dad would buy us guitars for Christmas. So one particular story is that I remember my dad bought us a guitar, like I was probably in 5th grade, maybe 6th grade. And it was like the 3rd time he'd bought us guitars, and they had just like all died horrible deaths because they'd get leaned up against something or smashed or whatever. And they were cheap guitars anyway. But my brother finally says, "Hey, how come you always buy us these guitars and none of us know how to play?" And it was like a light bulb went off, and he's like, "Oh, well, I better teach you how to play." So literally Christmas morning after gifts, we went into a room in the house, and he showed us 4 chords. And as a result, 3 out of the 4 of us boys play guitar. 2 of us for a living. All of us do in like our churches. And my third brother, he dabbled, but never did like just totally. He does a lot of other things. Anyway, so that's just interesting. That's how that happened, officially getting into music. And then I took music lessons, played drums in college and high school and junior high and all that stuff. But how did I get involved in worship? Happened around the same time because our children's church at our church in Belleville, Illinois, St. Matthew, was probably, I don't remember, 60, 80 kids. It was a church of 700 or 800 people. And the children's church time was a big deal. And one of the ladies said, "Can you come lead music?" So I just learned guitar that Christmas. And then that whole semester following, I took my 4 chords and sang basically 2 or 3 songs on repeat every week for the kids ministry. And one was Father Abraham and one was I'm in the Lord's Army. And I don't remember what else, but that was kind of the start of worship ministry in its like most elemental form. And because of that little encouragement, I kept doing it. And so I led worship in college and high school and for churches and our own church, other churches and groups, and just really anywhere I would go sing songs and be a part of that. And the typical rhythm is probably too kind of long, but basically the rhythm is worship rehearsal and then Sunday morning leading. And if it's for the church, then that's one realm. If it's for harvest, it's another realm because that group doesn't have rehearsal. We kind of expect everybody to know it and show up, do a sound check / rehearsal, make sure we work out any kinks, and then we just go for it. And as polished or unpolished as it might be, we're out on the road doing that. And so that's just the way that it goes down. And then most of the songs I have written have been, for whatever reason, our kids' conferences. So I have a slew of kids' songs.
Nice.
So that's kind of interesting because we just recorded 3 more from our last event, and I need to put those out on Spotify. Like, it's on my list to do. I haven't done it yet. Well, we also thought it might be fun, just for a few moments, to connect with some people who have been a part of this podcast in the past. And one of the people hasn't been on the podcast, but he's always got a lot of ideas, and we need to get him on the podcast someday. But it's my brother Jackson, and since today is his birthday, I thought we better make sure we say happy birthday to him. And we'll ask him one question, just kind of how did he get started in worship ministry? So we're going to try to get a hold of him now. Hey, Jackson, glad to get you here. We are doing our episode of the podcast here, 100 episodes. Thought we would just call a couple people, and since it's me and Dave sitting here, thought we would call you, since you're related, and say happy birthday. Today is your birthday.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Dave. It's good seeing you guys, or hearing you at least.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You've never been on the podcast, actually, but you've shared a lot of thoughts about worship ministry over the years. So one of these days, we actually need to have you on the podcast officially. But you work at the Hope Church in Springfield, and you lead worship there and do a bunch of stuff. And just thought we'd ask a question. We've told
Yes, sir.
The question is, how did you get involved in worship ministry? Like, what's the nutshell story?
Well, nutshell is I first picked up a guitar when I was 16. So I tell people, you can start as late as you want. It does not matter. Picked up a guitar, and in secret, I tried to learn some songs. And over the course of the next month or 2, I was playing music, and I didn't really have an end goal or direction with it, but I was just playing it. 2 months later, you, Tim, I know this feels a little ingrown because you're asking me this question, but 2 months later, you had a concert at Troy Methodist Church, and then you said, "Hey, I'm doing this idea of a team ministry approach to leading worship at camps. Anybody want to go with me?" And I looked around the room and kind of raised my hand, and you said, yeah, that sounds great, Jackson. I guess I could take you. And then over the course of the next few months, it was kind of on the job training or on the road training with that. But really, worship music began to take hold over the next few years. But it wasn't until I became a follower of Jesus. I was a believer, but not necessarily a follower. But only until I became a follower did all of that connect, because then it wasn't about the music. It was about a vehicle for helping people express their love to God. But that was the thing that just put it into, fifth gear, I guess you could say.
Wow, that's a great story. Did you see that post we just put out about Ruby's been adding all the Harvest Wheat CDs albums to YouTube?
Oh, that's great. That's hilarious. No, I don't know if I saw that. I'm terrible.
It was just on the Facebook page, but they're on YouTube in a little vintage folder.
Well, that's great.
Funny listening to those, that's for sure.
Okay, I love that.
All right, well.
The good old times.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for joining us here for a few minutes. We are going to call a couple other people as well, although you're kind of the guest star, because everybody else we're talking to, if we reach them, is people who have been a part of the podcast in some way. So for the second 100 episodes, we at least have to get you in here talking about some concept somewhere.
You got it. I will make a deal with you right now.
What's that?
Whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Do it. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for calling.
Yep. Talk to you later.
All right. See you, Tim.
Bye.
Bye.
Great stuff from Cousin Jackson. If you have his contact information, you should absolutely call him up, text him, whatever, say happy birthday.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. We'll overwhelm him with birthday greetings. Yeah, and we have a couple other folks here too that have been a part of the podcast. One of them is Clint Benish, and Clint was kind of a co-host for many of these episodes, and so just wanted to connect with him and basically just see how he's doing. So we're going to jump on the phone with him. So here we go. Hey, Clint, Dave and I are sitting here doing the 100th episode of the Worship Leader Toolbox, and thought we would just connect with you as somebody who has been instrumental in this thing since the beginning. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Tim, when you say 100 episodes, that's monumental. Like, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, and I don't even know if we counted very well at the beginning. I'm not sure if we put the counts on there, but yeah, it is hilarious. And everybody who is listening here probably recognizes your voice because you were on, I don't know, we should count how many you were on. From 1 till probably 70.
A couple. I was on a couple. Yeah. Man, 100 episodes. That's an achievement. Like, that's a real podcast nowadays. You made it past that certain number where everyone usually falls off and, kind of rising to the top.
Yep. And so I don't know if this audio will be good because we're connecting here like this, but Dave and I are sitting here talking about just how we got connected in worship and ministry like that. And so we don't want to take too long for your time, but just wanted to see if you wanted to share quickly how you got involved in worship to start with and kind of what that looks like today.
Yeah, for sure, man. That is knocking off some cobwebs back in the memory banks. But yeah, so I got into worship ministry in my early 20s. We had moved from one town to another, and we got a postcard in the mail inviting us to an Easter service. And we were like, well, let's go. We don't know any churches here. Let's go here. And when we went, there was something completely different that I only experienced at summer camps. And they had a worship team. They had a band, and I was a guitarist. And this was completely new. Sunday morning, I was used to choir and hymnals, and I wanted to be a part of this. And I asked, how do I become a part of this? And the next week I was in the team. And that's kind of how I got first connected to the ministry. But as far as worship leadership and being a leader of the team, there is several years later, there was a transition of leadership, and that at the time, the worship leader left the church to go and do different things. And that kind of left us with a hole. And that next Sunday was the very first time I ever sang in public. And I was terrified, but thankfully the congregation were loving and they were merciful and they were gracious, and they sang even louder, maybe because I wasn't the greatest. But that was, man, that was like 16 years ago now, and I've been leading worship either as a main worship leader or even doing student ministry leading. I served where you're at for a little while, helping with the student worship team. And then the church that I'm at now, I'm the youth pastor, but I also help with Sunday morning worship, but we also have a student ministry worship team. And so it's kind of changed over the years and kind of helping pass the keys, so to speak, and helping raise up next generation of worship leaders for the church.
That is awesome. I've heard that story before. You might have even told it on the podcast, but we'll share it again just for fun. And the Lord uses a lot of different scenarios to open doors for people. So that's pretty cool.
Amen.
Well, Clint, we just wanted to call you, wanted to connect and say hi. So hope your family's doing well. And I'll see you sometime soon.
All right, Tim. We'll see you.
Thanks for being on the podcast again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clint.
Yeah, it was great to talk with you. We're going to just mention a couple other people, not actually get them on here, but Drew Alsman. Drew was actually only on a couple podcast episodes, but was one of the guys that when he worked at our church with me was instrumental in trying to get this thing going. The backstory is that I had a blog post or a page on the blog called Worship Leader Toolbox, where I'd put all my stuff that I would write about worship. And he saw that at one point and said, hey, this really needs to be its own website. And he basically single-handedly did it. And so we're still doing it today. Elizabeth West, you might remember, she was an intern here and helped us do the podcast for about a year. She did all the editing and some of the co-hosting, and it was great to have her involved. And she still leads with worship with us now and then. And then a long time back, we had Ava Andrews, who was a part of this on a regular basis, kind of did some of the commercials and voice and some things like that. And so, Ava, if you're listening to this, big shout out to you, and to just say thanks to each of these people that we've heard from on this 100th episode.
Great to hear from these folks. And now, to keep celebrating the Worship Leader Toolbox 100th podcast episode, we want to celebrate you, the listener. Here's what we're going to do. A random drawing.
So to get into this drawing, what we need to do is have you guys comment on a post in the Worship Leader Toolbox community. So it's a Facebook group that we have. You can look up Worship Leader Toolbox community, find it, ask to get in it if you're not already in it. And there will be an image there, 100th episode question, basically. I guess we'll just kind of ask people how long they've been leading worship. And here's what we'll do is we will basically ask you how long you've been leading worship, have you just share that with us, and then you're basically in the drawing when you make a comment. And so hopefully you can get into that Worship Leader Toolbox community group, and we'll do a random drawing from everybody who makes a comment.
You know what would be fun?
What? Pictures.
Oh, yeah. If anybody has pictures from years and years ago and the kind of equipment you used, and that would be.
It's always hard to have pictures from years and years ago because none of them are digital.
Oh, that's true.
But if you find one, it's great too.
All right.
You never know.
Yeah. Another way is to send us an email at dave@worshipleadertoolbox.com or tim@worshipleadertoolbox.com. Just tell where you served and for how long. We will be sending a gift card to a lucky winner and another one to the person who has led the worship the longest.
Yeah, definitely. So if people respond on a comment on Facebook in the Worship Leader Toolbox community group, that's great. If not, you can send an email. We'll take all those comments and emails, lump them together, do a drawing, and the person who gets drawn wins a gift card, and the person who has led worship the longest also gets a gift card. And as we wind down here, if you would, we'd love to have you rate and review this podcast, to share it with ministry leaders that you know and people that are part of your worship team. And if you'd like to find out more, you can always visit worshipleadertoolbox.com. And there you can find some freebies and some blog posts and some resources and the podcast back episodes and all that kind of stuff. And so anything else for this episode, Dave?
Well, I'll just add, it's been really fun doing interviews, and if you would like to be part of one, send me your story or info, and we'll explore the possibility. Until next time, keep serving with everything you have in your church, lifting up the name of Jesus.